here, and I'm excited to welcome you back to another episode of Actually, You Can. Today's chat is like a warm hug for your ears as I dive into a heart-to-heart with the incredibly inspiring Dallin Candland. Dallin is a writer, a poet, and a genuine soul on a mission. Throughout his journey, he's embraced the power of compassion, aiming to sprinkle kindness wherever he goes. And trust me, his insights are like little drops of wisdom that'll make your day shine a bit brighter. In our conversation, we delve deep into the world of compassion. You know, that little gentle nudge we can all give ourselves to cultivate a friendly, warm present, even when life serves up its challenges. Dallin has a beautiful perspective on this and often weaves in references to God and the Bible. Now, if those terms don't quite resonate with you, no worries. I encourage you to swap them out for something that does. Because regardless of your belief systems, we all have an incredible amount we can learn from how Dallin walks through life. So get ready to learn how to infuse a little more compassion into your life, because actually, you can. Hi, Dallin. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Yes, I'm so super thrilled to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And today we're going to talk about the theme of compassion. And just from what we've been speaking about, kindness and compassion ooze out of every part of your soul. So I'm really looking forward to today's chat. And before we dive into that, I'd love to hear, what are some things that the audience needs to know about you?
I think one thing I need to share is that I really believe that God is looking out for all of us in every single moment and every single thing that we're doing, that He rejoices in all the really wonderful things that we're doing. And when we mess up, that He is so aware of it and that He's putting people in our lives to help direct things. So I'm working to finish up a book. I'm working to do a bunch of poetry to help me work through a lot of feelings and things. And God is a lot of the author of the story. I am just the pen. That is what I would say.
Beautiful. And in that context, what does the word God mean for you?
For me, God is my loving Heavenly Father, that He loves me as His son, and that He's aware of all my struggles and understands me on a way deeper level than any other person can, even my parents. I felt that pretty early on in my teenage years. Like I feel this sense of reassurance and this sense of confidence that is much deeper than anything I've ever felt for my parents. As much as I love my parents, I believe that God has reached out to me for a long time, and it's for a really clear purpose. Just like He reached out to, I believe like prophets from the olden days, like Samuel was reached out to when he was younger, and others. So yeah, that's what He is to me, and always looking to cheer me up and put people in my life like you, Myth.
I feel very blessed. And so when did you start cultivating this relationship with God? Is it something that you felt like you were born with, or was there a particular event that sparked the relationship?
I believe it was like around like 14 when I was going to go into making the basketball team. There's this expectation that maybe I would make it because I put in all this work through summer workouts and such. And I was like, I just want to be somebody that can lift up other people. And I know at this point in my life, I'm not somebody that's really able to do that. But I had a lot of conversations with him, some that ended with tears on my pillow, of just like, I want to be somebody that can really lift up people. Like at the time I was like 5'4", wasn't very like, now I'm 6'5", but like back then I was 5'4". And yeah, just that and kind of giving that to him. So when I did make the basketball team, my wonderful mother was like, hey, you could be the basketball manager. And that was a way to lift. Even though I wasn't running around on the court, I was able to lift behind the scenes. And that led to me running track, which led to me then actually being able to lift up people that were just getting started in track. When I was a senior in track, it's like, I've been doing this for 3 years, and I stood way more confidently, way more just trusting and more at peace. But yeah, God was all over that. And it's something I really gave to Him. Like when I was getting started with running track, I was pretty slow. I was pretty slow. And I remember praying before like literally every single practice before going on and practicing and being like, I really need help. Cause I really wanted to make the basketball team still. In my senior year, I like was running circles around people at tryouts, and I still didn't really have the skills probably as much. And like if I could dunk lights out, I probably would have made it, but I didn't. But I'd worked a lot on my running, and God had seen all of that effort and he was very pleased with it. And I just felt that with every fiber of my being.
And so it sounds like from a very young age, you saw the value in and your ability to lift people up. And I think we all have the ability to lift people up. However, not all of us choose to make a conscious choice to do that. What prompted you to start making that a conscious choice? And how did you start going about that?
I think God sends us messages to help us kind of get the conversation going. Cause I believe that prayer is an ongoing conversation with God. Like I'm always like praying and trying to get like, what would you like me to do kind of thing. He's not going to force me in any direction, but I like keeping in touch with him. There's this article I remember reading when I was younger about these like football players that reached out to this kid with special needs and how they like helped him out and they like included him at their lunch table instead of like pushing him away or anything like that. And they just enfolded him in love and kindness. And it's like, even when they go their separate paths and this football jock is married and whatever else, we all go through struggles, and this other kid is doing something else, neither of them will ever forget what either experienced. And so it's so worth it to do that thing that sounds maybe ludicrous to other people, but to you it makes so much sense in terms of love and compassion. And so there was that, and I think that might have triggered something in me of like, I want to do that too. I want to do that too, and wanting that, and kind of bringing that to God.
And what's some of the most impactful moments in your experiences since then that you've had?
Yeah, there's literally so many.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I know for certain that God is aware of the conversations going on in our heads.
Mhm.
100% certain of that. And so when we're having a really, really rough time, the Lord is aware of that. And so I think the one that comes to mind that I'll share really quickly is I was just gone off my 2-year mission trip for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I was in a rest stop with my family and we were, driving towards Maryland, and we stopped at the Virginia rest stop, and I was just kind of felt like something important was going to happen. I'm like, oh boy, oh boy. And, I yeah, just kind of was hanging out in the rest stop, and I went and used the bathroom. And then I said hi to a couple of the people that walked through. And then this one kid walked in. You just kind of could sense, I just felt this like immediate, like the world just kind of stopped a little bit. Like there's something important that's going to happen, sort of. And I just complimented him on his shoes. It's like, you have nice shoes, man. He's like, thanks. And he kind of went away and I was like, well, that was the stupidest thing I could have said. Like I probably like really what in the world? And I was like beating myself up about it. But I feel like I shouldn't leave the bathroom yet, which sounds so weird. But I've shared this experience a number of times. I just kept washing my hands and I feel like I should just stay until he left and until he was done with whatever he was doing. And then we just talked a little bit, and I just kind of felt this like kind of love for him, and I just shared with him, like, I feel like God is having me reach out to you. Where are you going? And when I said, where are you going? It was not where, it was also like, where are you from? But it was also like mentally, like, how are you doing? And I shared that with him, and he just shared some things with me. And I had like a scripture come to mind from like the Book of Mormon. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So I had the scripture flash into my mind. So I shared that with him about like men are that they might have joy. And I was like, I don't know what you're going through right now, but I believe God wants you to have joy, pure, deep, loving joy. And I just kind of reached out to him and he's like, do you use Instagram? And I was like, at the time I didn't have an Instagram. I was like, no, Snapchat. And I was like, no. And he's like, well, I really appreciate you. And I want to tell you that I've been in the United States for 11 months and nobody has reached out to you. Nobody's reached out to me in a way that you've reached out to me. And we've kept in touch for almost 6 years now. And we've talked on the phone. I helped him through college. I messaged him when he was in college and he's going through really rough things. And now he speaks a lot more confidently. His English wasn't very good back then. But yeah, I just prayed with him and we went our separate ways, and it was really beautiful. But that happened out of nowhere in a Virginia rest stop. And I've had experiences like that other places. And yeah, so it really does come back to God knows the conversations going on in your head. I've had some crazy conversations going on in my head recently. And he's put plenty of people in my life tell me, I hear what is going on there. I have compassion on it. The compassion God has for us is cannot be put into words. So it was really beautiful to help out that person and that we were able to have a friendship from it.
And that's such a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it. It's seemingly the small interactions we have with humans that can have such a profound impact on their lives and our lives as well. And again, not everyone is able to see that. They don't see the value in those small moments. So I'm interested to hear if someone's sitting here going, well, what value do I have to offer another human or how can I impact them? It seems like such a small gesture. What use is that? What would you say to them?
There's a lot of scriptures, there's a lot of hymns that I would say are like scripture that can help completely bring the light in with these things. And I remember reading this one when I was on my mission called Scatter Sunshine. And the second verse says, slightest actions often meet the source needs. I've seen that so many times. Like the tiniest little things, like a wave, just a little pat on the back or, really small stuff. Like I remember times like I got to go to seminary for a couple years, when I was going to school, like we go to seminary early in the morning and read scriptures and such. I remember a couple times when seminary teachers would say like, you know, Dallin, you're doing awesome stuff. I appreciate you, or something like this to that effect. It just kind of stays with time and doesn't dim with time and always as bright of a campfire if I ever need to come back to it. It's like the Maya Angelou quote that people may not remember what you said or what you did, but they will remember how you feel. So that's what I would say. And also that kind of going back to the same thing, God knows the conversations going on in everybody's heads. And you have gifts, you have talents that can really make a difference for people. And it might take a long time for those to really start to show, but God is aware that you're building on them and he will use those exact things to lift up other people.
Yeah, and I love what you've just shared in saying that everyone has gifts and sometimes they might take a little bit to shine through. What can someone do to start to take on that belief and start to really come to the place of acceptance that they do have value to offer?
Yeah, that is deep. I think a lot of it is trusting that things will become more clear in time, you know?
Mm.
It's this crazy phenomenon. I remember being at my grandparents' house in Maryland. When the first time I saw a dimmer switch, I was so fascinated by it because it's like you can press it and it can like slowly make the room brighter and brighter and brighter. And then it can also be made like really dark, in an instant. And so that's how I think a lot of life is that things will get brighter and brighter. You'll be able to see things more clearly. There are some people in my life that maybe I don't appreciate them, but then I go through some experiences and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really need to like hold on to this person and appreciate this person with every single fiber of my being because they will not be around very long. And I've had a couple times like in the grand scheme of things, right? And I've had a couple times in my life, Myth, where a friend has kind of, their time has run out, whatever. And I chose to let my ego or something block me from reaching out to them how I wanted to reach out to them. And that leads to holy cow energy. Like wow. Yeah. So a lot of times when I meet people, I treat them like it's the last time I'll ever see them. That's how I do it now because I don't see myself doing it any other way. I try to do it that way as much as I can. Sometimes I forget, but it is that beautiful thing. But I said this on other podcasts before. It's like we have no guarantee if we'll run into each other again, but if we act with compassion, it'll be better when we run into each other again. There's this old guy, super amazing person that I ran into him on my run a couple of days, probably a week or two ago. And he was telling me that his granddaughter just committed suicide like the day, like a week before. And I don't speak lightly of that. I was just like, wow. And just the day before they like buried her. And I just talked with him and talked with him until he's like, until it was clear, like we've gone deep. We've gone deep. We feel the love. And this is all we can do. But I love you, man. And that's it. But I ran into him again when I was on my run. It was really brief. I just kind of, gave him a, pat on the shoulder just to so he knew I was there because he was working on some stuff. I'm sure he's pretty caught up with things like, oh hey. I was like, hey, and then that was all the time we had because we don't know how much time we'll have for different conversations. And so yeah, I really try to cherish those moments and run to them.
Wow. And just hearing you talk about that, I mean, I often hear the phrases, especially in the circles that I work in, that, we should make the most of every day and achieve all of the wildest dreams that we have for ourselves because tomorrow is not guaranteed and we never know when it could be our last day here. And I think it's so often thought about in the, I guess, the realm of doing and achieving rather than the interactions that we have with people. So people are busy achieving their goals, but they're not taking that same approach to the human interactions we have. And so, from your point of view, what impact would it have in the world if all humans on this earth were looking at interactions with each other through the lenses of treating people like it's the last time they'll meet?
Yeah. So there's a scripture in 1 Samuel 16:7, and it says, look not on him for his countenance, nor on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. So I think really looking on the heart and taking a step into somebody else's shoes, I think that does a good part of like maybe being able to get closer to understanding what they're going through. And if this was the last time you would talk to them, what you would say. It's really tough too, because sometimes you really just have to be patient. You really have to be compassionate because if you're feeling all this love for somebody, but that that is not necessarily what they need. And they just need you to tell them like you care about them, not like, oh, I love you so much to the end of the, what, it's like, that's hard to do. But as something God has taught me a lot over the last year, it's like sometimes the best way you can show love is to just say a couple of things because we all receive love differently. I'm a words of affirmation touch kind of person.
Yeah.
And so compliments go a long way with me and, conversations go a long way with me, but that's not the case with other people. With some people, you're kind of adding on. It's not helping out as much as some other things would help. So it's a tough balance. It's so fascinating to me though, for sure. But it's an interesting balance.
Yeah, and the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes, I think some people might find that easier than others. And from my experience, and I'm interested to hear from your experience too, this often comes when if people have a growth or a fixed mindset too. I think if people have a growth mindset, they're more willing to try on other people's ideas and views of the world. And to your point, maybe put themselves in their shoes. Whereas people who have a relatively fixed mindset, it's almost their way or the highway, and they struggle to understand other people's points of view. How would you encourage someone who potentially has, in this example, a fixed mindset to be able to open their mind up to potentially have a growth mindset and all the benefits like passion that come with that?
I think getting a couple little wins really helps. Like I played a
Mhm.
lot of Mario games growing up and 1-1 is great, but you want to move on to 1-2. You want to move on to 1-3. You want to save the princess in the castle and find out she's actually in another castle and, eventually beat the game kind of thing. Like, you can have those little wins and kind of I think video games teach it so well. Like in Mario, you get the mushroom, and then at the end, there's like the da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There's like that victory dance at the end. And it's like that is what you need to do for yourself. Give
Mhm.
yourself a victory lap. I made a playlist 8 or 9 months ago called Victory Lap. And so whenever I do something really good for myself, I just sometimes play that and just like, bro, I want you to really feel this. Like this was good stuff. Like this was good, 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 good stuff. Do you hear me, dog? This is good stuff. you know,
Mhm.
like this is really good stuff. And so getting a couple of little wins can really help change the conversation with yourself. It's funny because I remember one of the first times where I was wanting to quit track after getting
Mhm.
started. I had a strong desire to do it. and wanted to make a basketball team and such. But I remember running around this circle, of course, with some people and just being like, hey, I don't really think I can do this. I was like really slow in comparison to other people. I didn't have a lot of the endurance, my top speed, and all of those things weren't really there. And they're like, this one kid was like, don't tell yourself reasons why you can't, tell yourself reasons why you can. And the brain is really powerful no matter what. There's been times I've denied the power of the brain, denied the power of my brain and whatever. It's like, no matter what, like I believe our brains are an image of God, so like there's clearly tons of untapped potential there. But the brain is really good at acclimating to whatever weather you put it in, whatever thing you put it through. I got really used to running at a very hard level and really pushing myself to the limit, like every single day kind of thing, that I'd get home and homework was a breeze. My grades went through the roof, myth. I was kind of struggling a little bit with school, but after track, having the ADHD and everything, I was able to hyper focus, going home in a state of flow, just like homework, nothing else had any chance of being in my way. It's like I literally just ran a mile in this time and it wasn't like super fast, but it's like I got faster and faster and faster. And I was able to see things more clearly and building up that growth mindset. But yeah, I started at a 7 minute and I got it down to a 5:39 after, a couple of years of running and practice. And I missed two practice, maybe three practices. One was for taking a chemistry test. Another one was because, I don't know. It's like I was very consistent. So I was just like, we're going to keep showing up. And yeah, once you show up and it can really rewire your brain. I saw that in track. I've seen that with a lot of my other endeavors. So that's what I'd say. It's like start with a couple wins, kind
Mhm.
of remember it's like victory lap, all that stuff, sort of like Mario. So you can get to that next step and really feel yourself move to that next step.
Yeah, I've just got the Mario theme songs playing in my head. So thanks for that. I think that'll be stuck in my head for the rest of the day. And that's some really great advice there, is especially if you're looking to expand your options and expand your awareness, it's setting a stretch goal, something that will challenge you a little bit. It will require you to either learn a new skill or do something differently, and then commit to following the process and showing up, to your point as well. And I'm interested to hear, you mentioned the subconscious earlier. How would you describe the subconscious, and what's your relationship with your subconscious?
I know I've been reading some books about this and they give this some analogies that really resonate more with me. And I love analogies. I think I love putting things into analogies that helps me to understand things a lot more clearly. I think my relationship with the subconscious kind of goes back to the body spirit mind thing. I believe they're all connected,
Mhm.
right? So when I was doing all this running, my spiritual life also got better. And how I thought about everything got better. I was way better able to reach out to anybody because I was having this accumulating stack of wins, it's getting bigger every day. I think a lot of it is just that there's this continuous connection and that there's things going on, there's miracles happening that we don't completely understand. And this analogy just came to mind. It's rough. So we're going for it. I think a part of the subconscious is like kind of like at like a fast food restaurant when you have, here's your meal, here's everything that we can prepare for you right now. This is what you ordered. Like if you tell your brain something, like your brain will come up with something. It will like just get it to you, so quickly. And then there's all these materials in the back. There's these locked doors of all this ridiculous amounts of material and potential. And I worked at a pizza place for a bit, and there's always tons of things, super valuable information, super valuable materials, ingredients, and such. And that stuff will come out in time and you need to just kind of be patient with it because it's all precious stuff, even if you don't get to see a lot of it sometimes. So that was just kind of a rough in the moment kind of analogy, but that I feel like that kind of does resonate a little bit with me. It's like there's a lot of this other stuff, and you don't really know how quite to explain it. But it's like this was not me consciously doing this. This was me, like deeper parts of me that are working on this that I am so ridiculously grateful for. that I don't have like a complete control over, but there's some kind of provisions, there's some kind of things happening as I'm sleeping or as I'm on a run that are making these beautiful things happen that I can't sense consciously, but I know are happening subconsciously.
I love that analogy, and as you're saying that, my version of that as well is if you've got your fast food restaurant that's making pizza, the restaurant stocks particular items, and so it will ring up a pizza based on the items that it has, and then over time you can look to introduce more ingredients, and so the different pizzas you might get upgraded ingredients, or you might get different flavors of pizza. But I think that's probably how I view the subconscious mind too. Is it's all the ingredients that go and make up your reality, or in this case, your pizza. I'm interested to hear your thoughts too. I definitely believe in the body, mind, spirit connection and how if we take positive action in the 3D world, it definitely has benefits for your mind and spirit. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts, especially I'm in the health and fitness space as well. People often use the gym as punishment for the physical body. They train because they don't feel good enough, or they want to sculpt their body in a way that doesn't really align with how a physical body is meant to look. Say, what are your thoughts on people using the physical to reinforce potentially things that aren't resourceful or really positive and loving to someone?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, and this is going to sound a little harsh, it's like a false god. It's like you're trying to make something be like worshiped or be like loved or accepted or revered on such a deep level. And yeah, that I don't know, it's just kind of how I feel about it. It's like the greatest amount of affirmation and love and courage and peace and whatever has always come from like trusting God or doing things I feel like he needs me to do. And I would like to get in better shape, but I care much more about my spiritual and mental shape. And I believe that, there are battles not worth fighting with. There's things not worth doing. Like there's a scripture that comes to mind too. It's like if you gain the world, but you lose your soul, like what's the value of that? So like if I was like reading this LinkedIn post about these different people that have a lot of success but then they're divorced with kids and stuff. I would rather not get divorced. I would rather, I'm not married, or dating anybody, but I'd rather have a strong relationship, you know, and have that come at whatever cost it comes. And if that is like having a super sculpted body or making tons and tons of money, then so be it. I don't want to have anything come before these wonderful things that God has put into my life. I believe my body is a gift from God and he wants me to treat it that way. And that he needs me to just be a good example here, like before I die, because we're all going to die and I will have a legacy I leave behind. And all these things that I did will be so much more deeply understood and felt and seen by people. And they'll be like, wow, that's crazy that he did that. That when all this was happening, he still chose to trust God or whatever it might be. So that's a part of how I begin to start to address that.
Yeah, and I really love what you said when you mentioned that you're trying to make something feel worshipped. My belief is that if something's meant for you, it will be a bit more easeful and flowing. So, for example, if I use health and fitness again, I used to try and make myself be a certain weight. And ever since I've let go of being a certain weight, I've actually pretty much been that weight. And I stay that weight no matter what I do, as long as I'm looking after, to your point, my mental and spiritual health. Then I show up however I show up. And I've actually grown to really love and respect the physical body in that sense, rather than forcing it to look and feel different. And I really love to hear from you as well. You mentioned your legacy. What do you wish your legacy to be? Or do you have an idea of the legacy? Or you're not attached to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of the legacy I'd like to leave behind is that things will take time, but they will be worth it. And that God
Mhm.
is aware of you and what you are doing. Like it's an interesting analogy because I spent a lot of time growing up shooting hoops and practicing and stuff. And yet I never made the basketball team. And I
Mhm.
kind of felt that on a spiritual level, like I'd reach out and share things, but then they wouldn't, they weren't really addressed. And I was like, why, God, why do I have all these powerful feelings if nobody cares? Do you care? And it's like later it took time, but then, I literally run like a daily scripture podcast and share like a daily scripture. So it's like, there's a lot of things been built up, but right now it's like, there's a lot of preparation that needs to happen. So I think just trusting God's plan more or less, loving people, reaching out to people, and creating when you are most struggling. Because I felt that the most a lot recently. It's like you're having a really rough day. Wow, that is amazing. Because there's probably a lot of beautiful things in there. You could write a poem. You could. I've written songs. I've written all these other things, and you start working on it. But yeah, I think that's mostly it. Is just kind of trusting God's plan. If any of my grandkids are listening to that, trust God's plan, then.
Yeah. And that's such a beautiful message as well, to trust and surrender. And I think to enable some people to do that, they almost need some reassurance that they're on the right path. I know for me, it's hard to let go and trust. I feel like sometimes I need to control a lot of things, or at least control my destiny. I'm a big believer that I can shape that. I mean, I have a podcast called Actually You Can. I think you can achieve anything you wish to achieve. So how do you, or how would you support someone to navigate that? How would you encourage someone to lean into trust when maybe then they're not quite ready to surrender or let go into that?
Yeah, leaning into trust. Yeah, I think a lot of that is sort of kind of goes back to what I was saying in the beginning of like knowing that God knows the conversations going on in your head. He knows the prayers you're praying to him, that he's aware of all of it. So when you do kind of get that sense that he's asking you to come into the game and reach out to somebody, even if you feel not in the best shape of your life, mentally, spiritually, etc., that he is calling you out there for a reason. Like when Jesus called Peter, James, and John and the other apostles, they weren't perfect guys. They had faults, but Jesus saw potential in them. And yeah, so I think a lot of it is just trusting and knowing that God sees so much potential in you, and maybe taking some notes, like some journals, like of like, have I seen God reach out to me today? Have I seen something that's leading me to this goal? you know, and kind of trusting those things instead of fighting them, because I've done that before, being like, come on, God, like this is a pretty good job. Can we just, I need money. Can I just have this job? And it's like, nah, dude, I've got something else prepared. It's like, come on. And it's like, but it's just trusting because what is ahead must be so great that saying no in this moment is important that of everything else, or maybe not, or later, or it's not, it's still done with a love that we cannot comprehend. And there's a quote, I've given some church talks and such, and this one line comes to mind from a talk I was writing. And it's, if that destination is that precious, then surely any inspired detour is worth it.
I love that quote. That hit home for sure. And so I'm interested to hear in your thoughts then, how would someone know they're not necessarily on the right track? That's the words that are coming to me at the moment. But how would someone know? Because I mean, if I use myself as an example, especially when it comes to things like trusting your intuition, I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm hungry or if that's my gut reacting to something, like something's not right in this environment. How would you support someone to be able to start to see signs that they're on the right track, or start listening to messages they're receiving when they might not have done that before?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is starting to pray, starting to tell God about your day, how it went. Like, this is how I felt today. I ran to this person. It was cool. I thought that was neat. Like, he loves to hear us go through our day and share all that. Lately, I've been really doing that a lot more, not just as granular detail as I can because he's there, it's like, there's not a, okay, God is ready to talk to you at 10 p.m. You need to be there, else you're missing opportunity. It's like he's always able to reach out to you.
And when you're speaking to that, it reminds me of gratitude practices. So often when you reflect on gratitude, you're writing about things that are important to you. And so it's almost like you're sending the message that these are the things that matter to me, that are important to me. So you'll be served more of the same, or your attention will be brought to more of the same. Is that sort of what you're referring to there?
Yeah, I think just we're all running off of limited information. Like we have these super amazing brains, super amazing supercomputers. The struggle is that we're surrounded by not great information. We also have
Yeah.
to be intentional about what we're receiving and what we're putting out into the world. And it's just a difficult thing. It's like there's been times where I learned things about somebody later and I'm like, oh shoot. I definitely could have been kinder or usually it's wow, now that I know that what that person has been doing, I'm like, it would have been great if we'd gone out to lunch more, if we'd hung out, because there was clearly tons of gems in that person. And that's kind of the vibe
Mm.
I got. But I just some reason just took it for granted. And now here they are like working at LinkedIn or whatever. And it's like, that's dope. That's cool. But I think a lot of it is just not singling yourself out. And this is something I've struggled a lot with is being like, God is going to bless every single person except me. Maybe somebody
Mm.
need to hear that because I've certainly been
Mm.
feeling that. It's like, no, no, no. It's like your time will come. Everybody has their chance to like go up to the plate or on the stage or whatever it might be. And yeah, it just sometimes will take time. And until then, enjoy your preparation time. Because when the time for preparation ends, the time for performances come and you can't go back. You can't go back to the previous season. Once winter
Mm.
comes, man, if we can't like, oh, actually, I really want summer back. We're gonna have to wait for summer to come back. So it's important to embrace and feel, rejoice, cry if needed in this season, because compassion on yourself in this season will 100% make things better in the next season.
Mm. And what's coming up for me when you say that too is the word acceptance. It sounds like a lot of this is based on just acceptance of who you are, what your journey is, the current season of life and everything that you're going through. And then from the acceptance, you can move through and continue on with your journey. And so I'm interested to hear the word acceptance. What does that mean for you?
Sorry, I have an alarm going off.
That's all
Let
right.
me
Would
turn
you like
it
to grab that?
off.
Yeah.
But this is perfect because that was my alarm saying, write about your day and share how God has reached out to you today. So there you go. I've been putting a lot of alarms on my phone because my brain can go all over the place. Like I talked a little bit about the ADHD thing. And so I've been setting some alarms on my phone. I have an alarm that goes off at 10:20 p.m. to like talk to God about my day and stuff. And it's like, yes, there's times where it's like, maybe it'd be nice if I could just think completely normal. Like, I don't even know what normal is, but like, if I could think more like this person does, and I didn't have all these crazy thoughts, all these poems, ideas in my head. Like, I've written like 3 or 4 poems, and I had like 4 or 5 others come on my run. I don't know if I'm going to share all those, but it's like, there's a lot of stuff that's happened in my soul today. And it's just completely different from any other person. It's not like it's better or worse, but for whatever reason, this is the life I have. And there have been mistakes I've made, but I wouldn't change anything because it's taught me to really, really treasure every single day and every single moment. Because there's times I've wanted to wish moments away. And guess what? Those moments were gone because that is what happens. Time passes away. And you can numb yourself out with things. You can do any of that stuff. But the point is that life is going to happen with you or without you. And I'd rather be with life than against life.
Yeah. And if someone listening to this is feeling a bit against life at the moment, that things might not be working out for them and going through some challenges, what would you say to them?
And just say it's okay to feel exactly how you're feeling because I was feeling very like my feelings weren't valid. Like I wasn't good enough, like sometimes I would reach out to these wonderful, well-meaning people when I was going through some of this stuff and like, Dallin, you're doing such a good job. I'm so proud of you. That's not what I need to hear. Like, I want you to hear me cry. Like, not necessarily cry, but I want you to like really like, this is what I'm feeling. Like, have you ever felt like this before? Like, you've completely lost like, I failed a class. Like, have you, like, and like, I'm not somebody who fails a class. It's like, I had this high school, I had like super great stuff. And I failed a class in college, and it's like, there's things that have not been addressed here. Like, I'm trying to talk to you, Like when you say like, you're like, you're a good person. It's like, that's great. I do not feel like a good person right now, you know? So
Yeah.
it's like there, it's completely valid because I've had that where I don't really have a safe place to turn. And that I guess, except God and those people that God puts in my path. And so I've just learned about that, that I'm completely okay with sharing whatever I need to say instead of, reaching out to somebody who means really well. And it's like, count your blessings. Like I've counted my blessings. You know how many blessings I have? This is exactly why I feel terrible because I have all these blessings. And yet I don't feel like I'm in this great spot. I'm beating myself up
Mhm.
with the blessing bat instead of swinging with the blessing bat. I'm beating myself up with it. That's not helping. So I would say you are 100% okay to feel that way. And yeah, it's completely okay to feel that way because I've 100% felt that way. And just also that God will put people in your life. I believe that. I talked to a friend tonight. I was feeling very all over the place. And he just let me talk for like 15 minutes straight, didn't say a word. And then we talked a little bit more. And when I failed that accounting class, you know, I went and talked with a friend and he let me talk for like 10 or 15 minutes. And then he's like, okay, do you want to hear what I think about this? And I was like, yeah, I think you needed to take better care of yourself. I see Dallin that had all these really high goals, but then wasn't rewarding himself and giving himself grace. And then that next semester, I worked at Pizza Hut. I took 15 credits. It was crazy because I had to do more schooling to make it all work out, but I killed that semester. It was all A's and B's and it was way, way, way better. But it does come back to the rewarding yourself thing. And for myself, like I have my podcast, I have all these different things that if this is what I need to do to feel like myself, to really feel like the best part of me, then so be it. I can't afford to be upset with myself anymore about this because I've already done that. And so, yeah, it's completely okay to feel that way and you're precious. And that will only become more true with time. And also, last thing I'd say on that is that you will always have more compassion looking backwards and forwards. That's been the case for me. I look back and I'm like, holy cow, if Dallin knew what Dallin would be doing later and did some of these deep struggles, like how in the world did he do that? I'm like mesmerized. Like, how in the world did he do that? And just mind blown and just the kindness that he had and the love he had to just keep serving people. And I just one quick thing I'd say is like I remember for this quick experience, remember going to like this marketing society thing and they had a bunch of soda. And I was like, cool, soda. And I had a couple. And then they're like, yeah, we're just gonna chuck all this soda. Or like, who wants the soda? I was like, I'll take all the soda. So I literally put them all in my backpack, like these 30 cans of soda. And it was like my final exams week. And I had already taken all of mine. And I just gave away cans of soda to and people in the library and talk to them like that. I really needed this. And I don't really know any of those people. I couldn't tell you any of them if they reach out to me. If they reached out to me, they're like, oh yeah. But I don't remember any of their faces. But I do remember what I felt of like providing a need. And we all can help each other with helping each other out. And so you can like, there's a quote from a member of my church. He says, you can do something for somebody else that nobody else on this earth can do, like past, present, or future.
Yeah, I love that. And it sounds like even, if someone's going through challenge right now, it's despite that or despite the shitty things that you might be feeling about the situation for yourself, still find the space and compassion to do something that makes you feel good. I think it's really easy to think going bad. It's like, I don't feel worthy of doing something good for me or what's the point? It's almost like, despite that, probably even more of a reason to do something good for yourself. It's to change your perspective, to give yourself compassion, and then you go about your business again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of it's blessing the inner child instead of saying the inner
Mhm.
child doesn't know what it's talking about. The inner child is that, part of ourselves that's like playful and wants attention and wants, all these fun little things. It's being like, yeah, I'm going to go on this run, but I'm going to listen to this playlist if that's what I feel like I need to do, or I'm
Mhm.
going to do this hard thing. But on the other side, there will always be love and compassion and just rewarding yourself, making that connection of like, I'm going to help you through this. I'm aware of you. I've been talking so much more kindly to myself. And it's mind blowing because I was so unkind in my self talk, but now it's like, oh, Dallin, I'm not letting you go. I'm not losing you. I'm going to help you out, bro. It's crazy, but yeah, that is what it comes back to.
That's so beautiful. And you mentioned as well that you have a podcast. I would love for you to share with the audience what the name of the podcast is and what it stands for.
Yeah. So the podcast is called Yield Today with Dallin Candland, and Yield is an acronym. It stands for Yes, I Envision Love Demonstrated. And I just have been sharing things on my journey for the last 4 years almost. By the time you're hearing this, started August 24th, 2019, and different things I would say to people about the self compassion, trusting God, building the life you want to live, peace. And it's been a lot of fun. And I know for sure that like God has greater plans for us and that that's something that he's helped me to do and helped me to really run with. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Like I have done some while I've been on walks. I've done some just while driving cross country. I recorded a couple just for fun, and it's been really fun. And it's helped me to just show up as I am and not expect anything, not like hurt myself for not showing up a certain way, but just be okay with how I'm showing up and just continue to uplift and help out myself. And yeah, it's been quite a journey, just that itself.
And it's definitely a journey that will be part of your legacy. And so I'm interested to hear, how did you come up with the name and what does
Yeah.
the name mean to you?
Yeah. So I was working a job at Pathway Worldwide. So it was like a online school that the church helps people out all in developing countries and around the world to get like a more affordable education. I was like calling and stuff for that. And yeah, I always have a notebook. I always have a pencil close by. So I was like, I should probably come up with an acronym for the word yield because I like the word yield a lot. And I was just like, just kind of sitting there. I was like, yes, I envision love demonstrate. Bam, there we go. And it just like the the space I was in, I was surrounded by really good people, was doing a really good job, and I was just at peace. And so that really helps those stream of conscious things to fall, like just completely rush through a lot more quickly. And yeah, I've just been able to interview some wonderful people through it. And a lot of it, it's funny because I have thought about changing the name before. And because it's like, what world is it? I mean, but it's a lot of it is like there's like a scripture of like yielding to the promptings of God reaching out to you. And it's in the Book of Mormon, it's in Mosiah 3:19. It's like yielding to the promptings of God reaching out to you, and that will lead to wonderful things. And there's another scripture in Romans that says like the same thing of like yielding yourself as an instrument to God. So a lot of it is like you're driving down the road and then you kind of like, this is great, you're on the road, but you need to turn right now. Okay. Instead of driving for like another 5 miles and we've missed all these opportunities, and you have to give yourself compassion on that because I've 100% missed opportunities reaching out to people. But I've also had those times where I sense it and I run towards it, and it's beautiful. But a lot of it is that with living life, there's going to be times you're asked to surrender and go a different direction. And that will always be a wonderful thing. And at the same time, you can envision your life, try to envision it how God sees it, what he would say to you, what he would do for you, what he is doing for you, and kind of do something similar to that, like he'd want you to go to bed at a good hour. So maybe try to help yourself go to bed a good hour. And maybe if you want to watch Avatar before, then do that. But do these little things that will clearly make it so clear to yourself that you love yourself because he surely loves you. So that's a lot of what it's about.
That's so lovely to hear you say. And I think often our ego can get in the way. And when I know with my clients, when they come to me for support, if I ask them the question, what advice would you give a friend, or how would you speak to a friend in this situation? The advice I give a friend is so different to what they would give themselves. And it's like, why is that? Why does that have to be the case? You should be able to treat yourself with the same love and compassion that you'd treat your best friend.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm curious, Smith. I've been wanting to ask you a question. Because
Sure.
you just have so much different things to say. So I'll get this question out there. So when it comes to, I'm not sure of the professional cycling you did, but like when it comes to the teammates or people you had around you, how did they
Mhm.
help you to like continue to level up? Maybe when you wanted to, maybe slow down, how did they help you?
Yeah. So when I was cycling, my role in the team was to support the winners. So essentially, cycling might look like an individual sport because one person crosses the line first, but essentially it's a team effort to get there. So I was constantly motivated and inspired to do my best because I know that I needed to be at that level to support the riders on our team. So in my last year of cycling, it was 2012. So a lot of my leaders were trying to qualify for the Olympics, which is one of the biggest milestones, well, was one of the biggest milestones for the cyclists at the time, female cyclists at least. And so just by knowing that they were doing everything they could to be successful, I almost owed it to myself to be successful. In saying that, though, there are some resourceful and unresourceful ways to do that. So there were some times there I didn't do that in a lovingly way for myself, and that wasn't sustainable and it wasn't enjoyable. But yeah, I think just by being around people who gave their heart and soul to everything they did and who was so important to them, that inspired me to put in the effort myself as well.
Wow. Yeah. It gives you a lot of perspective too. And you see how much effort they're putting in. Yeah. That's beautiful. It does make me think of times in like cross country, that we have those runners who are running and they have a lot more strength than I do. And I'm just like, wow, it's just really giving it for the greater good. So yeah, that's amazing. Do you keep in touch with any of those people that you biked with?
Yeah, without going into too much detail, I guess I left the cycling scene. My relationship with the sport wasn't awesome, but I didn't let that sort of impact my relationship with some of the beautiful people that I met during the sport. So I recently reconnected with a lot of them, which that I really, really enjoy. Such incredible humans. And I think anyone who's willing to put themselves, the climate of women's cycling has improved a lot since my time, but it definitely wasn't easy during that time. So I have a whole heap of respect for anyone who's willing to make themselves uncomfortable and risk so much, given that the environment for them to do it in wasn't particularly favorable or comfortable. So yeah, I'm definitely friends with a number of them, and they're all doing great things off the bike. Some of them are still on the bike, but I think the qualities that made them successful as cyclists are the qualities that will see them be really successful, whatever that definition is for them off the bike. So yeah, we still relate on that level too.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. You go through this really difficult thing together and you still keep in touch with some of those people. And I think you get to know people more who they really are to a certain degree when you're going through that really tough thing. And your heart just kind of remembers how you felt and remembers the strength of that person. And so it sometimes makes it easier to reach out to them, even if it has been a while. So I don't know. It's super cool. Thanks for sharing this.
You put that far more eloquently than I could have. But yes, that's definitely the vibe that we're going through. And so it's really clear that you have a really strong commitment and dedication to spreading compassion and love. And it's truly inspiring. And so to finish up, I'm really interested to hear from you. What's a really actionable step someone listening to the show could do in the next 24 to 48 hours to start to carry forward that love and compassion in their own lives if potentially they're not feeling that right now?
Yeah. So I use this thing called 750 words, and that helps me brain dump. And it's free for a month. And then it's like super cheap. It's like $50 a year. But I've written 500,000 words on there in the last year, which I've never written that much ever. But I've been writing so much stuff, and just writing all that stuff down really helps me see there's a lot of good stuff here. It's like maybe it's not all we're going to turn this into a book or we're going to turn this into a podcast episode. There's a lot of good stuff here, and so I think what the challenge I would give is to do kind of a brain dump with yourself. And if that's talking, if that's doing a speaking thing, or if that's writing, but just kind of writing as much as you can and making that a habit, I think that would really help out. Just knowing that there's a safe place to share all these feelings, because there's times where I'm like, holy cow, where did this come from? And I know this isn't something that I particularly want to share with somebody right now. And so I can work on it and I can write it down and I can acknowledge it, because in college, there's times where I'd have these deep feelings and then I'd have to wait to get the outpouring, like in the little bits and pieces through certain things. But for me, brain dumping really helps, like, to like completely just let it go. If that's what you need to do, like Elsa, when she's like, I'm never going back, she's like, she does this, she has this moment and she acknowledges everything and she feels all these things. And I don't think that's a perfect way to connect brain dumping, but there's a lot of power that I've discovered in myself from just that and just making it a habit. And so that is what I would 100% say, because you can go back, think like, this is what I wrote on this day, this is what I wrote on this day. And I'm getting close to being on a year of 750 words. I'm excited because I've already gone back to some moments and looked back and I'm like, wow, we can hear, like, I was stressed about moving across the country. I was stressed about this and this happened. You can really get a sense of the conversations you're having with yourself. And that can really, really, really help you in the conversations you have with other people, and to help highlight their goodness and also highlight the goodness in yourself, because it's all there, even if it's tough to recognize sometimes. And you can also look at those things and be like, okay, I want to highlight some of that stuff. I want to repeat some of those wonderful things. There might be something you wrote to that you haven't done yet that you wanted to do, and you can kind of go back to it. So making brain dumping a habit, that'd be it.
Yeah, that's incredible. And bringing voice to what's going on internally as well. I think as soon as we see something written down on paper, we're like, oh, wow, I'm feeling this way. You're like, okay, that's good to get out there. And I think that it's worth mentioning as well to listeners that don't worry about what you're putting on paper. Let it flow, because no one's giving you a grade for this. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's almost like you've got to trust that what comes out needs to come out. I know journaling and brain dumping is something I traditionally struggled with. And that's because I thought it had to look a certain way. It had to be perfect. And you might start by writing the word like, hi, how are you? Or answering a couple of questions. But once you get going, then it gets easier to build momentum. You just need to commit to the process. But that's wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Dallin. And thank you so much for your time today and for sharing all of your experience and insights. It's been such a heartfelt, wonderful chat. And I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have a journal that's a little more polished to help me with more of a focus, but the brain dump is very just like literally on 750 words, second you start typing, it's like it starts counting. Like, all of this is so valuable. And that is the last thing I would really make very clear, is there are some things that will always be a win no matter what, like reaching out to somebody, regardless of how they respond, you're coming with a good intention, you're trying to help out, that will always be a win. For me, I went on a run today. It was well, actually today was a faster run, but like yesterday's was a lot slower. That was still a win. And going to bed at a great time, that will always be a win no matter what. And so for me, it helps for me to have these kind of things of like, that will be a win no matter what. And once the work is done, it is done. Like, I was up way too late last night working on an interview with this person. I was really excited to upload the interview, but now it's done. It is gone. I can move on to the next one. It's just completely done. It's always a win. It's a W. It's a vote for the person I want to become. James Clear would say it's done. So yeah, there's some things they're always going to be a win. It helps to remember those things.
Final words of wisdom. They were perfect. Thank you so much for today, Dallin. It's so much appreciated.
It really is. I really appreciate it too. Matthew, it was fun. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today for another episode of the Actually You Can podcast. I so enjoy having you here, and I hope you've taken away powerful insights and tools that will support you to achieve your high-level results. Now, before you go apply all of this wisdom in your life, I would be so grateful if you are able to leave us a podcast review on the platform that you're listening to, or share this episode with a friend. Your support means that we can help more self-led, high-performing individuals just like you expand what's possible for them. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on today's episode, so please go on and shoot me a note on socials and let me know what you think. You can find me on Instagram at MiffGalloway. Now, go ahead and make those dreams a reality, because actually, you can.